All right, what's going on, dog trainers? So you're here with me today in my home, and this is dispatch number 10. This is the accompanying video, not a podcast, to the dispatch that's on the blog. And the topic is still first aid. And last weekend, I made a video on my IFAK, which you see here. And I had some time to review that, and it caused me to actually go back through everything. So today's video will be the IFAK plus my truck kit, or vehicle kit rather. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the application is for both and why there's a difference, why you wouldn't just want to have one big old kit that's good for everything, and then, or you also don't just want to have your IFAK. So let's start out with the IFAK, arguably more important. IFAK stands for Individual First Aid Kit. The whole concept really was obviously popularized in the military. Wartime soldiers needed to carry their own first aid gear on them. I believe the first war this really was a thing was World War II. It was, to some extent, people were carrying a little bit of stuff in World War I, but World War II is where this really took off. And the idea here is that you need to be able to immediately treat severe injuries as they happen. People and dogs can bleed out insanely quick. Bleeding, massive hemorrhage is the number one killer of, is the number one preventable cause of death in really humans, and I'm not sure about dogs. It might be heat injury, but it's definitely up there. So let's talk about a few things first. First, it needs to be identifiable as a first aid kit, not just to you or your family, but even to others. Not so much in a dog sense, but let's say you're unconscious, somebody else needs to be able to walk up to you and be like, there's this first aid kit, grab it, and start treating you with it. So mine's red. Even when I'm hunting, I still carry this on my bird vest for that very reason. And then obviously it has a little white cross on it, just to signify to people even more that it is a first aid kit, not just a random pouch that I keep gear in. On top of that, it needs to be small, easily accessible, without having to move a whole bunch of stuff around, and light to where it won't bother you carrying it around all day, even on short trips. One of the biggest mistakes that people make, and this is something that I personally did early in my career as a military working dog handler, I tried to be over prepared, right? I wanted to be prepared for everything, so I carried all kinds of stuff in my first aid kit that just really didn't have to be in my IFAK. And a couple of times, it would cause me to not take my IFAK with me on hikes or hunts because it's just too big, too cumbersome, and my thought process was always, I'm just going a mile, like whatever, it'll be fine. And thank God I wasn't in a situation where I had, whenever that happened, that I had to use it. But over time, after being in more real world first aid situations where I was prepared, I really realized like this needs to be on you at all times. So yeah. All right, first aid kit. Sorry, IFAK. So first of all, for dogs specifically, hunting dogs that is, even working dogs, if you're in the wild, you need to carry a pair of these. These are wire snips. I talked a little bit about these in the last video last week. And these are specifically made to cut braided and snare wire. Multi-tools will not get through snare wire. It's happened too often. Too many people have lost their dogs that unfortunately got caught in a snare, and they weren't able to cut that wire with their Leatherman or their Gerber or whatever. So these are a must. $10 Amazon. And I'm gonna breeze through this since there's a more in detail video on it last week. Tourniquet, SWAT T, giant elastic band. Last week I did say that I was gonna take this out of the packaging. I went home and I really kind of thought about this again, and for this specific type of tourniquet, only for the SWAT T, I did actually decide to keep it in there because this rubber, you don't want it exposed to the air or, just dirt and debris because it kind of collected. It's basically like an exercise band. So it actually does make sense to keep it clean, keep it better intact in the packaging, especially if you can see this packaging actually has 6 total areas to tear it. So this really will not take any time to do in the field should it be necessary. Then gauze, Z-folded, important, not rolled gauze. Then emergency compression bandage, commonly known as an Israeli bandage. Stop bleeding, like I said, last week's video goes more into depth on this. So does the dispatch. Vet wrap, that's your one thing that's good for everything. It could actually be used to apply pressure, but also bandage a paw or anything of that sort. Sorry for that whining in the background. That's Archer. So, and then chest seals. It's a must. And I also, like I mentioned last week, I carry a chest decompression needle. So, just a few little quick recap. This is what I carry in my IFAK on my person at all times. I also carry eye wash almost everywhere. This is sterile. You can also rinse wounds and bandages before you bandage them, so your gauze and whatnot doesn't stick or dry to healthy tissue. I didn't expect him to be this whiny, honestly. Anyway, so yeah, I do carry this. This is going to get used a lot, especially in hunting dogs that run through tall grass to get those seeds. If I can actually demonstrate it. Archer, come here. I can demonstrate it. Come here. They get those seeds stuck in their eyelids. So you would literally just pull down on their eyelids like this and really, and he's used to it, like just pressure, rinse those out. And again, that can work with really any kind of injury too. Anything you need to just irrigate, wash out, rinse off, get sand, debris, etc. out of. All right, buddy, back. Cool. So let's move on to the vehicle kit. This is a first aid bag that I left the Army with. And this is the truth. I don't actually remember how I came by this bag, but I got it, so I'm still using it. So because this does not look like a first aid bag, I took a Sharpie and wrote it on there, big old first aid with a big cross, for the same reason I explained earlier. On the back, it actually says, this is a TCCC Combat Casualty Care bag by Recon Mountaineer LLC, in case anybody's interested in getting exactly this bag. So we talked about the IFAK makes the dog or yourself survive in order to get to the truck. It just keeps you from bleeding out. That's pretty much it. Once you're at the truck, this is where you need to have resupply for your hemorrhage control for everything else, right? So you have to have more bandages. There's another Israeli bandage, different type. More compressed gauze, right? This is a full-on Israeli bandage, actually. More chest seals. More, I mean, you can tell, right? Just more bandages, more hemorrhaging kit. Human cat tourniquet. I have another rats in here. This is also where I have some neopretal. You can get this from your vet. This stuff is awesome for just minor injuries. It's an antibiotic, and it's phenomenal. I mean, it just makes stuff heal so quickly and stops infections from happening. I personally also, right, because the purpose of this kit is to basically now stabilize the patient, the dog or yourself or another human, from your field, wherever that is, to the emergency room, to the medics, to the ambulance, etc. So personally, for that reason, I do also carry lactated ringers. I am trained on this extensively. I have practiced on myself when we're in the Army. We used to give each other IVs all the time. This is not something I recommend for y'all, for somebody who's not trained on it to carry. It's just to stabilize somebody. I oftentimes will hunt or hike way in the backcountry. I'm talking hours and hours and hours away from getting first aid. So I do carry stuff like this with me a lot of times because I'm trained on it, I'm proficient in it, and I can actually help treat shock this way, or other situations. So what else? We have another chest seal. This is where I also keep one of these cold packs. If you have a dog that's getting too hot, heat injury whatsoever, this is a good place for it in the truck kit. Here's my tube kit for the lactated ringers, as well as my sterile catheters here. I will carry some oral rehydration salts. This is more for humans. What have we got here? This is injectable Benadryl right here, and then I do have the syringes for that as well. I actually was brought up still as a dog handler to treat snake bites in the field with Benadryl. Since apparently that's changed, apparently, we used to believe that, oh, swelling equals allergic reaction. That's actually not necessarily the case anymore. So for snake bites, a lot of veterinarians no longer recommend Benadryl as a first aid treatment. But we're in the field. You have no. I mean, what if somebody's allergic against bees? You don't know if your dog's allergic, to animal bites. Other than that, since snake, it's odd. Apparently, like I said, it won't hurt your dog. Let's say it that way. But for actual common allergies, or if you're hunting with somebody and not hunt with a lot of different people, or in areas where there is a lot of strangers, I want to be prepared to help other people as well. So I do carry Benadryl. Carrying oral tablets of Benadryl, diphenhydramine, is also a good idea. Obviously, the injectable just works faster, so that's why I carry it. All right, what we got here? More hemorrhage control, more hemorrhage control, more bandages. I carry an eye shield in here. These surgical eye shields are really nice if you have if your dog or yourself, these do work on dogs. Uh, if you get something stuck in your eyeball, or an eye injury, even a shot from a shotgun in the eye, you want these surgical eye shields are awesome just to make sure to protect that while you transport them, so that your dog doesn't paw at it and make the injury worse. More combat gauze, and more combat gauze, and that's pretty much it. This is also, oh yeah, my lube. This is also, I don't carry all four of these. This is just my resupply. I only carry one of these. Surgical lube is phenomenal, again, to keep injuries and other things irrigated. What that means is, let's say you have a dog who gets caught in barbed wire, get a big old gash down their abdomen, and let's say worst case scenario, even guts are hanging out. You don't just want to shove those guts back in there and apply a bandage and move on. What you really want to do is rinse. If you have clean water, rinse that as much as you can. But before you apply any sort of bandage over that to hold everything in place in order to prevent further injury, uh, dousing lube, this is sterile surgical lube, all over that is a great idea to prevent the gauze or the bandaging that you are going to apply to not dry to the injury or the bowels or whatever. And then later, when you're at the hospital, they remove the bandaging and actually rip off, part tissue or the blood clots and all this other stuff. So keeping them moist and irrigated, lube is a phenomenal thing to carry. In your truck kit also, this is where you would carry, again, I don't carry Neosporin or any of that stuff anymore. I carry the powdered version. This is what you want to carry here. This is just all kinds of stuff, like I said, to treat minor things. It's also hemostats, right? Clippers, that kind of thing. I put those here. Forgot to take them back out. Trauma shears to just, like I said, cut big chunks of stuff off, or gear or clothes, etc. This is all stuff to carry in here. Your truck kit, you can pretty much play with. Anything that you think you may or may not use in a mild, minor, whatever first aid situation can go into your vehicle kit. This is heavy, big. You're not going to hike with this for 20 miles, in addition to your 35 gears on the backcountry hunt. But this stays in your vehicle, right? So at this point, that's why I carry lactated ringers and so much extra bandage materials, because whatever, the weight doesn't bother me. I don't have to carry it. So this is where you can just kind of pack everything that you ever think you might need, pack it in there and keep it there. And then, I do periodically, at least once a year, I'd say. I go through all of my stuff and really reevaluate, do I need to continue carrying this or do I not? My IFAK, this is where, yeah, like I said, you don't want to carry too much, because if it's too heavy or too bulky, you're not going to carry it. And this needs to be on your person at all times. If you are working your dog, if you're hiking by yourself, whatever, this needs to be on you always. This will save your dogs and your own life. This will get them to the hospital. This will make them arrive there alive. I can't stress that. Especially, like I said, these, depending on where you are, your area, trapping is more or less common on public lands, even in parks, even national parks and stuff like that. You'll have nuisance control, or even government trappers for certain animals, coyote control, that kind of thing, might not actually be recreational activity. These are a lifesaver. I've personally, thank God, I've never been in this situation. I have seen traps while hunting, and even I have seen snare wires in an area where snaring was not allowed. Matter of fact, my dogs didn't get in them. I did actually remove that snare because I knew it wasn't allowed there. But yeah, these are heavy. Even though it's your IFAK, I wouldn't take the chance on it. I carry Leatherman on me at all times as well, for other reasons. You know, it's just always a good idea to have a multi-tool on you. And yeah, I still carry these. You know, the Leatherman is also, a lot of people have hemostats and stuff like that in here to get quills. I honestly, my Leatherman has pretty fine needlepoint pliers on there, so that's all I carry for that purpose. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helped you out. I hope this gave you a little bit of further education on the differences between an IFAK and a vehicle kit. I hit the key points exactly on what the purpose is and what the difference is specifically. So yeah, if you have any questions or corrections, if you think there's something else that should be in an IFAK or in a vehicle kit or not in either, or a better recommendation thereof, please let me know. I'd love to, put it down in the comments and we can have discussion about it because I have been wrong in the past and I always like to learn. Last, I just want to reiterate, because this is a dog channel and we're worried about dogs, make sure you have a tourniquet that will work on a dog. The cat tourniquet, which is this one, this is the most common, familiar one that most people know. This is from Afghanistan. It says my blood type on there on the little tab. These are great, phenomenal for humans. They don't work on dogs. Might as well carry a tourniquet in everywhere, right? That works on dogs and humans. SWAT T or rats. All right, folks. I appreciate it. Oh, there's my syringe I was talking about. All right, folks. I appreciate it. Again, write in the comments any kind of questions or concerns, and just remember: analyze, apply, achieve, and most of all, practice with your gear. Be familiar with your gear. If you're in that type of situation, you're freaking out and adrenaline is pumping, even if you don't think you're freaking out, you're going to revert back to your most comfortable level of proficiency and training, to muscle memory. If you've never trained on any kind of first aid, you're probably just going to freeze. And if you freeze, people or dogs die. So yeah, educate yourself, work with your gear. I'm signing off.